Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made these cards. This is finally my paper pumpkin alternatives this month. I got my kit really late and so I didn't really have much of a chance to fuss with it until yesterday and today. So I've come up with 3 alternatives so far. I plan to do one more video where I do 3 more because there's an awful lot of the kit I've never even worked with. So let's talk a little bit about the paper pumpkin. This is the April paper pumpkin and it is called You Are My Anchor. And here it is. There is the opportunity to make 4 little boxes to hold one each of 4 different designs with the envelope of some 3x3 envelopes. So there is enough to make 20 cards. Yes, so there's 5 different 3x3 cards with their respective envelopes. And it's just as cute as it can be. And making this up and making the box and putting the belly band cover around it and using some of the embellishments that are here, I think would be a wonderful way to go with this. But I always like to, and I don't, for demonstration purposes, I don't make the kit the way they suggest. So I use this opportunity to make 3 alternatives, full-size cards for this kit. And so this is what I have come up with. I have this one that is in sepia tones, and it says, You Are My Anchor. And it's a little on the shabby chic side, and it's got an anchor on the inside. This one has the anchor and the life saver here. It says congratulations, and on the inside it says adventure awaits with a little bit of stamping. And this last one is this lighthouse with this beautiful spray of light going away from it, and I made a little tag. It says ahoy, and then it says thanks, and then on the inside of the card it says you're a lifesaver, and then we put the lifesaver piece inside there. So those are the 3 cards I'm going to go through and make today. So let's start first with this one. So what you need to do this, I did it on Very Vanilla, an 8.5, no, this one is 11 by 4 1/4 folded at 5.5. So it's a top opening folder. And then you need a piece of Very Vanilla, and this piece is 3 3/4 by 5. And I wanted a nice big border around this and then to continue on. Then in addition, we have some stamping, and we have one of the anchors that we're going to need to make this. And all I did was turn it over and color it. And we're using some of the twine. And to get started, what I did was I used the largest oval in the layering oval framelits set here to cut out my oval piece on this size card, 3.5 by, or 3 3/4 by 5. And then let's see, the inks that I am using. I am using the ink that came with the kit, which is Island Indigo. And then I am using soft suede. Here is my soft suede, and I just went ahead and opened up this little Stampin' Spot. I don't usually do that, but it's here and it's handy, and it's the other color that I'm using. So we've got that, and I guess I did use, for this card, a little Pear Pizzazz and a little So Saffron, and I'll show you that as we get to it. Now, one of the things that I did was to use a sponge around the edges of both the main card and then this piece. And let me grab my sponge here. And I need to sponge also around the inside edge of this oval now that I've got it cut. And pretty much everything's sponged on this. So I'm also going to go ahead and sponge, and I wanted to get a little bit of sponging just around the edges of this card that are going to show. Now then, I'm going to do a little bit of work, I think, first on this piece here. And this is where I did my stamping of my my lighthouse here. And I decided this one would be prettier, all in kind of the sepia tones. And so this is photopolymer, so I need my pierce mat. Sorry, I lost a little bit of video here. So what I did was I stamped my lighthouse here just to the left in the soft suede, and then I used my sponge down here on the bottom to create something that looked a little bit like sand. Then I was just now working on this when I realized my camera was off. I used the Island Indigo and I kind of brushed some of it off, and I got a little deeper amount of it here in the center of my panel to represent water, and then a little bit here towards the top to represent some sky. Now then, this is where I used my saffron. And what I have done is I just took a piece of scrap card and I took another sponge, and I believe it was this one here, and I took some of the saffron, and what I thought I would do is just shade across this lighthouse top and see if we could get something that looked a little bit like the light rays coming out of this. And so I'm just sponging just off the edge of this straight edge here and getting some little light beams, and I'm going to go back and forth a couple times here until I'm happy that I've got something that looks like light beams coming off of the lighthouse. And there you go. We've got a few little rays emanating away from our lighthouse. I'll bring that up so you can see it. And it just gives the illusion of light. And I think that's pretty nice. I'm really pleased with the way that came out. Now, I'll have to admit, this stamp set, and let me see if I can put my hands on the stamp set itself. Here, I had created the little birds on here just using my black Stampin' Up! Marker. And then I found that in the stamp set here is this little stamp right here. And guess what? It's birds. But I decided I liked my birds better anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and do what I did. I just used the point side of my Stampin' Right marker, and I just made some little V's here and some that go straight up and down, and just make a couple of little birds here up in the sky. And I think that's very pretty. And I think I need to add a little bit more blue up here. My sky doesn't look very sky-like now that I've got some of the yellow on it there. So there we go. So we've got a few little birds there. Then I have mounted the little anchor and the little starfish. And I'm going to take this little anchor on the one side. Let me take this one off so I can see more clearly. I'm going to take this little tiny anchor, and you see what I did was I set it here on the side of the lighthouse as though it were leaning up on the lighthouse. And if you don't get a perfect image, I used my water brush to fill in any places that were kind of missing. And then put my anchor back and use the little starfish. And I thought the starfish that I put on there was a bit dark, so I'm going to stamp off once on this one and put this little starfish right up here, kind of in the water and on the sand. And then I started to use my Pear Pizzazz, and then I decided that it was easier to use the alcohol marker, and this is the light old olive. And I thought it would be kind of fun to put in some grasses down here on my little beach. So I just did a few little marks here to represent a little bit of grass on my beach. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to take one of these anchors using my sponge here, and I'm just going to sponge this anchor because I didn't think that bright blue would look very good with my sepia tones here. But you could easily do this in gray too. Would be, I think, very attractive, the whole thing in grays instead of the browns. But I just wanted to get a little bit of something that matched here. And then I'll show you what I did with the twine. This twine comes in the kit. And what I did was I put a glue dot on the anchor right here underneath the little hole on the anchor. And then I put another one right down here on the bottom of the anchor. And I fed my twine here through the inside, so through the loop, and then stuck to the glue dot on the back. And then I just kind of wound this little piece of twine as though it were rope around this anchor, just however it suits you, and then I stuck it back here on this other glue dot and then trimmed off my piece of twine. So we get the idea of an anchor on our piece. So this piece is ready to go. This piece is ready to go. So I think we are now, I'm going to close that up so I don't accidentally do something I don't want. And I'm going to take my piece, and we're going to start putting this card together a bit. Now there's one more bit of stamping down here that is required, and it says "You are my anchor." And so I am going to take that sentiment, and I am going to take one of my blocks here, pick up my sentiment, and then I'm going to stamp "You are my anchor" right here on the bottom of this panel. So I think this stamp set is just so cute. And the font is just really pretty too. Matches nicely. And so there we've got the You Are My Anchor. You know, there's an interesting thing that happens when you're stamping. It doesn't matter how much space you have to start with. Pretty soon you've only got this little bit of space in front of you. I think it's absolutely amazing how things kind of close in, and I suppose it's the operator here. In any case, so now I have that stamped, so I'm going to move these pieces out of the way, and what we're going to do is put dimensionals on this panel. And we have one more little bit of stamping to do on the inside of the card, and this is a top folding card, and so I did ink up an anchor here, and let me grab that, and I'll just do that, and then I can put this ink away, at least for the moment. So there we've got what looks like a pretty good anchor, and I'm going to set that at an angle right here on the inside of this card. Let that sit for just a second, and there we have a nice image of our anchor. Okay, so now this piece can go on top of our card front here. So there we have our piece. Now we can take our panel here and just put some glue on it, and I'm going to use a little bit of Tombow because I want to be able to move that around in that oval to get it just in the right spot. That's the one nice thing about Tombow when you've got this kind of a project. You know, I might have to add another dimensional on the sides here. And then my panel really is inset this time. And there we go. Isn't that just the cutest little card? And my rays are a little darker on this one, and I think I like it. Okay, so the last thing we have to do is to put our anchor in place. Okay, so here's my anchor, and what I'm going to do is use a couple of mini dimensionals to hold that into place. And this kit came with some mini dimensionals. One more right up here under the neck to really secure that twine in place. This is much thicker than the linen thread, and so and it's kind of got a mind of its own. So if we set this right down here in the corner and put it into place, and then the last thing I did to tie the inside and the outside together was that I added a few more birds right out here in the space that I have here. And there we go. We have some birds. All right. So there is card alternative number 1, and I think it's a lovely card. And you can make it as dark or as light as you want. It just depends on what your preference is. Okay, the next one I have is this one, and this one was just kind of fun. All right, this again is a top folding card, and I thought this one would be fun for retirement or something like that, where it says adventure awaits, or somebody who's going to move to a new place where there's some access to the ocean. Or if you came from the ocean, maybe any kind of use of that would be good as a congratulations. So what I did was I took one of the box sleeves here, if you will, and I cut it on my trimmer down to 1-inch strips. So that is the piece that I have here. And I just didn't, the fold line is still there, but I don't think it shows much. So I'm going to just snip off the end so that I have, and you can see how much I took off of that, practically nothing. I just want to be able to open this end up. There we go. And set that, so that this is again 11 by 4 1/4, scored and folded at 5 1/2. Then this panel is 4 by 5 1/4. So what I did was I just used some snail along the bottom of my card here and on my piece. And I put it right on the edge of this so there is no margin. So right up against the edge of the bottom and right up against the edge of one of the sides, and then laid it in place and then trimmed off this end so that I had a perfect fit. Okay, so and there's actually, if you were to do this, you can get 3 pieces at 1 inch out of one of these sleeves. All right, so there we have our piece along the bottom. Then what I did was I put some snail here on the back side, and I wanted to put this twine so that it wraps around this card. And so I cut a piece here. Let's see if I can tell you how long this is. This piece, usually they're around 6 inches. And yep, that's what that is, 6 inches. And I took one glue dot and I fold it over on itself, and I put it right here in the center, just above my striped panel. Now then, I can set my little piece of twine here, anchor it to that glue dot. I should be doing this on my silicone mat, because now I've got this stuck to my work surface. So then you can pull this around and secure it on the piece of on the snail here. And I'm going to add a little bit more snail, and I'm not going to rely on snail to hold this down, because like I said, this twine has got a little mind of its own here. So now that one is secured in place, and I will draw this one across and do the same thing. Secure that in place back behind. Okay, then I'm going to take another piece of twine, and we know that one was 6 inches. So if we cut this one to 6 inches, it should work just fine. And see, it's already picking up here. There we go. I'll secure that in place with a little bit of tape here in a minute. All right, so now I'm going to take this other piece of twine here and anchor that to the glue dot there. and then take these pieces around the side and secure them in place. And then what I did was, you could use Scotch tape. I used a little bit of washi tape because it's all going to get glued down in the end, and just to secure that in place. And then draw this one across as well. And put it in place. And then another little piece of washi tape to hold that twine in place. There we go. Now I have my little trim on the bottom here that I wanted to have. Now I'm going to bring back in my pierce mat here, and this is where I've got this little starfish, and I'm going to stamp the starfish kind of all over here. We're just going to create a little background. And what I did with this was, I did stamp off once because this blue is very dark. So what you can do is ink it up so you can see you've got a good inked image. Stamp off once, then you still have plenty on here to stamp a couple of times. So again, make sure you've got good ink on here. And if they're not perfect, it's really just fine, because the idea is to get the image. And in fact, on this one, maybe I'll even do a 3rd generation. The most important thing is to make up that it's properly inked up to start with, and then it's pretty easy to get it put in place. Because if you don't get it inked up properly to start with, then you're not going to be happy with the images that you get. And you want to leave a little space here to add some additional things, because we're going to put the anchor in place, and then I have those pretty little gold hearts, which we want to also put in place. Okay, a couple more here, and I think we're done. Okay, so next I want to take the little anchor, and so I've got to see what I did with it. Right here. So I'll take the starfish off, put it back, and use the anchor now. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I am going to ink this up till I'm sure it's inked up well, stamp off once, and put some anchors into place on my card front. And basically what we're doing is just creating a little background here. Okay, now then, in the kit were all of these little punched out hearts, and for a 3rd image, I thought it was just fun to add some little hearts around this card. And I added one down here, and what I'd advise you to do is, I put 2 or 3 sheets together and then punched them out, and I'd advise you not to do that. Punch them out 1 sheet at a time, because they stick to one another and then I couldn't get some of them back apart. So just to add a little bit of sparkle here on our card, I'm going to set around several of these hearts, because I think they make a great, add a little finishing touch in the way of sparkle here. And then we'll add our other images here. So I'll speed up the video while I add these components. Okay, so now I am back, and what I have is, this is what of the little banners in the kit. Then I have an anchor and my lifesaver here, and I'm going to go ahead and add this to the card front before I add any more embellishment. And I did put this up on dimensionals. Okay, there's our card front. Now we'll add twine to these pieces, and we will stamp our congratulations and put our decorations on the inside. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and finish adding the twine to our anchor and our little, for the life of me, I can't remember what these things are called. I keep calling it a lifesaver. But that's what we're going to do. And in order to do that, I used glue dots on the anchor, and do just like we did on the other card. I'm going to set one right here and another one down here, and then take my little piece of twine and put it through the anchor top here, ending up back on my glue dot on the back side of this, and pretty loosely, and then cut off my twine here, and there my anchor is ready to go. And I'll use some mini glue dots to put that in place, but first I want to go ahead and set up this lifesaver. I can't think what these are called. But I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to put some glue dots down, and on this one I'm going to put, I think, 4 just on top and bottom and the sides here. And what I did was I took a regular dimensional and took off the cover and placed one end of this little rope right in the center, and then wound this around on the top of that sticky glue dot here, and to hold our little rope in place here, and come around the edges of this dimensional and create just a little length of rope here. And I'm going to add a few dimensionals, mini dimensionals now, to my pieces here so that I can stick them down on the card. So there we have our little embellishments for the front of the card. Okay, so we're going to stamp our congratulations on our little banner here, and I'm going to be using the Island Indigo ink that came with the kit, and so that I can get that image down on my banner here. And there we have our congratulations. And of course you can use your various other stamps that you might have if you want a different kind of image on that. And then I put Adventure Awaits. Okay, it looks like I've lost another little piece of video. So I'm going to come back and show you what I did to finish this. So I went ahead and used some mini dimensionals on these and put them in place, and I think I was at the place that I added my stamp to this, congratulations. I put that up on mini dimensionals, and then on the inside I stamped Adventure Awaits, put a few of those little hearts, and put a couple of images down here on the bottom. So that was the end of card number 2. Now then, I'm moving on to the last card, and that is this one. And what I'm using is 2 bases from the card fronts here. This one makes a 3x3 card, as does this one. So what I did was I just trimmed this down to this size, and this ends up being 4 1/4, and I didn't mess with the width, so it's just trimmed down to 4 1/4. And then this one, what I did was, and I'll bring it up so you can see it, I just trimmed off the back of this panel here so that I was left with just this bottom half. And then I wanted my panel here to be just inset a little tiny bit on that blue, so that blue really made a background. So I trimmed off about 1/8 of an inch, I think you can see that, on either side, so that I got this littler panel, and this now fits on this with a tiny margin on either side. So that is what I did to get started on this. So once I got that far, what I did was to secure this piece down on this, and I did it in such a way that I placed this on the little blue stripe base here, so that there are 3 full blue stripes on either end, and the top and the bottom of the card fall in the next white stripe. So I think you can see that there, and that put it centered on this panel. And I'm interested in this becoming a pocket. So what I did was I used some glue dots, and I put some glue dots right here in the corners on both of these sides. So I'm going to put several of them down the sides here. Okay, and then I'm going to center this piece on this little card base here. Now this part is open, and so now I can make my tag, and all I did for my tag, this is pre-cut with a little hole in the top here, was that I glued this tag onto the top of this longer tag here, and I did just use snail. So I'm going to put a little snail there and a little snail on the bottom here, and I'm going to put that into place right up here so that my tag ends up, the little hole in the tag ends up at the top here. So there we go, kind of like that. And what I put on this was ahoy, some of these little waves, thanks, and then on the inside of the card I put you're a lifesaver, a few more of those waves, and then one of these lifesaver pieces. Okay, so and I probably should have done my stamping ahead of, but I think it'll still work. So I'm going to find my Ahoy stamp here and put it on my block and put my little Ahoy right here on my tag. There we go. And then I'm going to grab this little piece here that is the waves, which I thought was so cute and matched the front of the card here. So I'm just going to ink up these little waves, and I'm going to put several of them in first and second generation right down the front of this tag there, and then use the thanks down here on the bottom. And I can put my thanks back on this little block and get that stamped right down here at the bottom. There we go. Then I can thread this twine through my hole in the top here, and I wish I knew nautical knots, because it might be kind of fun to tie a knot that would be used by a sailor here, but the best I can do is maybe a square knot. So I put my knot here at the top, and then this little piece is ready to go right inside our pocket. So that's what I'm going to do with that. And then on the inside of the card, so this piece is now ready to go on our card front here. And I'm just going to use snail to do that. And then your Ahoy tag fits right inside the way it's supposed to. And let's see, on this one we haven't put the lighthouse on yet. Everything else is pretty flat on this, and we're going to put some dimensionals on this, and I'm using 3 dimensionals right up the center, the larger ones, and then a small dimensional right here at the top of the lighthouse. And then we'll put this little lighthouse into place, and our card front will be complete. So here we go, right here in the center of our card. Now, for the inside of the card, I stamped "You're a Lifesaver." So I'm going to put my waves back and get my "You're a Lifesaver." And there's my "You're a Lifesaver." And I'm going to stamp that there. Got a little smudge. So I'll have to figure out what to do about that. Maybe those hearts can save me. All right, and then I also then put some of the little waves on this. So let me grab the waves and put those back on my block, ink those up, and I put these down a couple of places here, first and second generation, and I think that's plenty, and I think that smudge just went away with one of my waves. And so I'm going to just use some snail and put this last piece into place. And so there we go, is for our third card. So that is the projects for today, and I want to thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. Thank you all very much for stopping by. And let's see, I'm going to move these out of the way and bring back all of the projects. So we have our lighthouse that has the ahoy and thanks with the "You're a Lifesaver" on the inside. Then we have our first lighthouse in the sepia tones, in the browns with the little birds and the light coming from the lighthouse. And then we have the card that has the anchor and the lifesaver with some twine on it that says congratulations, and then on the inside it says adventure awaits. So those are my first three paper pumpkin alternatives for the April kit. Now you can subscribe still through May the 10th on my site, www.lbedinger.stampinup.net. And if you sign up by May the 10th, you can get your first two subscriptions to Paper Pumpkin at 50% off. That's a heck of a deal. And they are fun. The kits are fun. And you can always figure out something else to do with them. And I always post an alternatives video or two. And at first I was putting up a video just showing what I'd done with them, but I had several comments where people wanted to see me actually making them so they had a better idea. So that's why I'm breaking it into two videos and doing 3 in each video. So that's it for me today. Let's see, the prize draw for the month of April is the embossing kit. So there's a Versamark pad, a re-inker, an embossing buddy, and 5 of the colors for embossing: gold, silver, copper, clear, and white. And it's about a $44 gift in the catalog. And on my second video that I put up, I have an extra paper pumpkin kit for this set, and I will pick a winner based on people who comment on the video, and you can win this kit, the You Are My Anchor kit, an extra April kit. And so I'll try and have that video up yet this week, and I'll announce at the beginning, and I'll pick somebody from the comments. So thanks again for stopping by my YouTube channel today, and I will be back soon with more projects and more cards. Bye!